So let's start to look how we can create multiple layers of elements that will overlap each other, very similar to a blood pressure chart. So let's start to look how to create the background color layers. First thing what we want to do here is convert this chart into a scatter chart. So I'm going to scroll down here and change this, say here scatter chart, save that, refresh. Now we have this. Alright, so then what I want to do here is change the value. I want to get only one single value because basically the inspiration for this is a specific chart for blood pressure measurements. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just put in here 100 by, and the y value as well, 100. So it's only a single value. I'm going to get a single black dot here. We should not have any other color because the other colors will be used for the background, which would be a way to describe basically the value or the stages of that situation. Anyway, so we have like this here. So let's start to work on this, and I'm going to remove the weekly sales. We don't need this. I'm going to say here score. Very simple. Now we have this. Legend could be removed, but I'll just leave it for now. What I want to do here is to say here comma. I'm going to say plugins, and then I'm going to say here it's an array because we could have more items or more plugins, and I'm going to give it the name of BG layer. So basically just a layer of color. So I'm going to say constant BG layer equals, and then what I want to do here, say the ID will be equal to that, or basically to the BG layer, and then we're going to say here before data sets draw. So what I want to do here is to say your chart arcs and the plugin options. Just say plugins, that would be fine. And like that, there we are. So now what I want to do here is first of all an object destructuring. So I'm going to say constant, and then I'm going to say this equals chart. If you don't understand what I'm doing here, check out the video in the description box, understanding chart.js object destructuring. Very important to understand. I'm going to say here CTX chart area. Not sure if we will need this. We will see. Top, bottom, left, right, width and height. Next, what I want to do here is I want the scales. So I'm going to do that just here. I'm going to say here comma scales. We can get here the X and Y scale. Make sure we have here proper comma. So now we have all of this here. This is done. Refresh. There we are. Alright, so now what I want to do here is start to work on the item. I'm going to say a constant. Well, basically I want to have the stages for the blood pressure. So let's say here BP blood pressure stages. I'll just get a few in here, but I'll make this as an object. So, or an array with values here. So it's an object in itself. So what I'm going to do here, if it's low, this will be the name. First stage is low, and then we're going to record the ending X value, and that will be 60. So if you are not sure how this looks like, I recommend you to get a chart or get a blood pressure chart to understand exactly how it looks like and what the values are. So I'm going to say here the Y, and then we can make this 90, and I'm going to give it a color of blue. So then we have this one. I'm going to put a comma here, and then I'm just going to copy this 2 more times. And then I'm going to say here this will be normal range, and this one will be I guess above or high, usually like hypertension, but that's alright. I'll just leave the terms. And then we're going to say 80. This one will be 120 because it's normal. We'll set this on green, and then high here we can make this orange. So this will be orange, and the X value here 90, and then here 140, and I guess we could do just one more for the sake of it. We'll make it stage 1. Alright, so there are multiple stages, but that's alright. So I'm going to make this 120, and this will be 160. This will be light red. That should be fine. So save this. Of course nothing happens because now we need to use this object here. We can loop through this one now. So let's go and loop through this. Give this a semicolon here, and then we're going to say here for every of these items here, well, let's start to draw first the item. or a shape. So we're going to say ctx.begin path. And this here, make sure that we draw the item and say this element is independent and no coloring or something else would bleed over to any other element. Very important. It's like an individual element. So then what I'm going to say here, ctx.fill style. This could be green for now. And then what I want to do here is I'm going to use the line. So I'm going to say ctx.move to, and this will give us our starting position. In our case, our starting position should be here, but a blood pressure will never be on a value of 0, and whatever this here is, this is already too high. So what I need to do is I need to change the scale values here. I'm going to say x. I'm going to say here the minimum value starting is 40, and then this begin at 0 should be removed. I'm going to say here as well, minimum will be 40 as well. Save, refresh. There we are. So that's a starting point. That is the standard starting point. So now what I can do here is the move to, and then we can say here getting the value. We're going to say x.getPixel, and this is a built-in chart.js function where we get basically the value, or based on the value, we'll convert that value into a pixel for the x scale. And what I really want is just the center here, or this one. So that's a value of 40 on the x scale here. So I'm going to say 40, and that will be our starting point. And then we do the same here for the y value, because the y and the x scale both have 40. Alright, so that is the first starting point. Then we're going to say ctx.line to, and this will draw the line according to this starting point here. So what we want to do here is, well, let's look at it. We have here the end x value will be 60, meaning from 40 all the way to 60 here. So I'm going to scroll down. We're going to say here, this will now be removed or changed to 60. But we want to stay still, because we want to have a straight line, we will stay still on the y value of 40 here. So basically 60, but y is 40. So that's very important. Now we have to go up here. You'll be 60 to, if I'm not mistaken, 90. That will be here. And the y scale will be 90. So that will be the next line. So let's start to draw that line, or we can even create the line. Right now we have a fill style here. And this fill style is green, but this will draw the background color. Since this is a line, it will not draw the line. So let's start to show you how do we give the line a color. So we say stroke style. And for now, I'll just make this black. And then I want to say here to draw the line. Remember, this here is an intention to draw, not drawing off. So to draw the line, we say a stroke, save, refresh. As you can see here, now this works. So of course the fill color will not work yet because we have only a line. There's no background color to fill. We're going to do this later on. So now what I want to do is I want to push this up going to the 90 or whatever our value was here. The end, the y end is 90. So what we can do is it's going to grab this, put it in here. We stay on the x value of 60. But this will be 90. If I save this now, there we are, and now let's go there. So now we have to go back. And then what I want to do here, we'll make this on 40. Save, refresh, you can see here. Now what I want to do is go down here. But we don't have to say now line 2 and then going down back to the original state of this. No, what we want to do, we want to close that shape so it becomes a rectangle. So what I'm going to say, here we have the begin path. So now I'm going to do here, but instead of begin path, I'll say close this path. So draw whatever chart for the canvas assumes will be the most logical point. So it will understand this point to here, and will close up this item. By closing this up, this inner part becomes the background that we can now assign a color. Well, we assign a color here, but now we can say a ctx.fill, and it will recognize this is our item. Beautiful. So this works. Alright, so now we have this here, and I guess what we can do now is to create our loop. So what I want to do is, we're going to get the BP stages. We're going to say dot for each item here, and I'm going to say for every stage we have an index, and then there must be an additional parenthesis here. Function arrow expression. Alright, so let's go to cut out this, put it in there. Then what I want to do is, I'm going to say enter and console log. I'm going to say here the stage. save, refresh, open up developer tab. You can see here an object with every item here. It will just grab all of them nicely. As you can see here, it recognizes them. It just loops through them of each of these individually. So what I want to do is, for now, I just want to grab here a few items. Well, let's grab here the color. How do we get the color? Well, we have here the stage, and all we need to do here, now we're going to say here stage dot, and then going to say here color. This stroke style here has no more value for us because we don't want to have the lines. We want to have this the square including the background color. So if I save this, refresh, you can see here it gets here the orange color, and the orange color is, if I'm not mistaken, this one. Did it even recognize this? Save, refresh. Alright, there we are. So we didn't assign here, probably light red doesn't exist, red does exist. So that's why it just gets this color. Alright, now it gets this color because it's overlapping each other. So don't worry about that, we're going to work on this. So what I want to do now is let's soft code this by getting the X end in the right location. So this here was our starting point, which is this point here, and every one of them will have their starting point. So what I want to do now is get the X end and figure out where we can put the X end. And basically we can put that in here. This dot X end. And then we have here the X end. And then we have here as well the X end. But then we have also the Y end that is here. Make sure we delete these. There we are. Copy this. Put it in there. Save. And then do it in here as well. Save. Refresh. Alright, so now we're getting a very, very weird item here, so I have to double check what's going on. X end, Y end, Y end. Alright. So probably because we have multiple items, it just doesn't understand what's going on. Let's save this and go back here. Alright, so now we have this, and it's interesting, it doesn't recognize a certain adjustment. So did I readjust something? I probably adjusted too much here, because this one here is going too far to the right, or maybe it's this one here. Let me just go back here and just double check what value did I overwrite. Alright, we have this one and this one. This should be stage.xend. That is correct, this is correct. Let's save that, refresh. Alright. And then, because we have the loop here, I'm going to hide this loop just to make sure we only have one of them. Alright, so now we're getting this here, and I want to make sure this 90 here, where did it get it? It get it from the Y end. So let's do one at a time. Save this. Alright, that one works. And then I'm going to do this again. Save. Alright, so now we have this here. So if I open up a second one, it should work. I'm surprised it was doing a weird thing. Alright, so now we get this. So what is going on here? We have to do some adjustments because you can see here it is overlapping or it goes far too high. The reason why it goes too high is because the minimum value or the Y end is 120 now. That is larger than our scale. So let's start to work on our scale. If you look at the blood pressure structure, there's one, I think the max value would be 180 or 200 plus. Let's say 250 for this. And this one, if I'm not mistaken, it should be somewhere about 100. Let's say max 200. Very simple. We're going to just give it a high value so we are sure it will work. Alright, so this works nicely. Now what I want to do is I want to add up, well, we have these two, but here's the problem. The other one was only somewhere here and it should be visible. So let's start to work on the visibility of that. So to do that, what I want to do here in the begin path, just after the begin path, we're going to say when we draw a shape, the shape we draw first, which is the smallest one, I want to be on top, and then the next one will be underneath of that, and then keep on going. So basically, because we have multiple squares, they're overlapping each other. But I want to reverse the order of overlap, that this one will be at the back, while the smaller one will be on the top, so it's visible. So we're going to say here ctx dot, and I'm going to say here global composite, and then we're going to say operation equals destination dash over. When we do this, semicolon, save, refresh. Alright, so now we have this one here. composite, alright, global composite over. And then what I want to do is I want to make sure that every one of those are now visible. Save, refresh. And then here sorry, I realized that I have, it was not overlapping, and the reason why it's not overlapping is the option here should be operation. My bad. Refresh. There you are. So now we're getting this, but if you look very carefully, our dot has disappeared. Because of this, the overlap is giving priority and the data set dot is missing. So what we need to do after we did this is to undo this. And how do we do that? After the fill, we're going to say the following. Well, we can just do it here. I'm going to say here ctx dot restore to undo everything, and then we're going to say here, we're going to put this back on source over. If I save this, refresh, now we have this. So now we have this one here, this is 100 by 100. What I want to do as a final one is how do we get this final item here? Alright, so we have this stage 2, that could be the stage 2 maybe, that's like more intense, but then we want to have the very top value of this one here, the highest value, and here. How do you do this? Well, we can check here, we have this item, here we have the scales. And what we can do is, remember we have in our scales the max value on the y and x scale. So that's what we're going to use and borrow. So we're going to say, for the x, will be x dot max, and for the y will be dot max, and we can just say this one will be gray. So it's easy to spot, and it's not too heavy on the eye. And now we have everything covered nicely, and this is basically a way how you can get multiple colors or make a blood pressure chart like that in chart.js.